There's no path to follow.
Hello, poker players. This is Steve Sub Brady again, and I have a cash game hand for you today. This time it's a 1-3 cash game played at the Red Rock Poker Room in Las Vegas, which is my home card room. Let's get started. I'm in the big blind with pocket kings. The under the gun player is a strong tag player, but straddles his hand. I hadn't seen him straddle before, but he had taken a short break and missed his blinds, so he was hovering near the table until he was under the gun. Then, rather than posting his missed blinds or waiting one hand, he straddled to $6. Then it folds to the hijack player, who limps, and it folds around us on the big blind. What should we do here? This is a pretty obvious raising hand, so the question is, how much should we raise? My normal open in a 1-3 cash game is $10, which is just over 3 big blinds. But with a straddle, I will normally bet twice as much, $20. But from the big blind, I would normally bet more, and after limper, I would also bet more, so this could be up to a $32 bet for me. And with a hand like ace king or ace queen or pocket jacks, that's what I would normally bet. But I have kings. Perhaps I should bet a bit smaller in order to increase my chances of getting a customer. I might do this even though the general rule of thumb is to make the same bet with every starting hand. Yet this is a rare situation here, so changing my bet from say $30 to only $20 would never be noticed, even if we reach showdown. It's interesting to see what GTO Wizard recommends here. I can't model this precise hand, but I can get close. We can set up the GTO Wizard 6-max model with a straddle plus ante model and have the small blind limp. Then GTO Wizard recommends raising to 7 big blinds, which would be $21 for this game. I think we should bet $20 to $25 here, but I doubt that we can make a very big mistake with any of these bet sizes. So I raise to $20 and the straddler calls. After that, the limper folds. The flop is ace, king, 9 with 2 diamonds, and the action is on us. What should we do here? I nearly always see bet when heads up, and this villain is a strong and observant player and would likely notice that. Furthermore, this flop is a bit dangerous, with straight and flush draws possible. The wrong turn card here might kill the action. However, since an ace or a king is very prevalent in the villain's likely range, a check raise might also be good practice. He might bluff if he missed, and he would likely bet an ace or a king if he didn't miss. I normally see bet here, but sometimes I will check with the intention of check raising. I might also check call with the intention of check raising on the turn. So I checked, and the villain bet $20, which is about half pot. What should we do here? My intention was to check raise, although I also like check calling in order to induce another bluff if the turn is a blank. But if the turn is not a blank, it could kill the action, so I think a check raise is better here. But how much should I bet? Normally I would raise 3 or 4 times his bet, which would be $60 or $80. But if I min raise and he calls, the pot would be about $120, which would make the stack to pot ratio about 2 to 1. That means that I still have time to get the money all in by the river if he has a strong hand. I doubt he has ace king, but ace 9 is a possibility. We should raise usually to about $60. So we actually raised to $40 and the villain calls. The turn is a 6 of diamonds and it's on us. What should we do here? This completes a potential flush draw. I could bet again, and I would normally do so since I'm not usually worried about monsters in a heads-up battle. And since the villain is a strong player, he might bet again as a bluff if he missed this board. And if he checks behind, we keep the pot smaller. I may have a huge hand here, but it's basically just a bluff catcher if he gets too aggressive. I think checking here is the best thing to do. This keeps the villain's range wide, allows him to bluff again, and keeps the pot smaller with a dangerous board. I check, and the villain bets $110, which is about full pot. What should I do here? This was a fairly big bet, just what a strong player might do if he were trying to bluff me. But a strong player might also be trying to get it all in by the river with the nut flush. Or maybe he has a hand like ace-king without a diamond and doesn't want me to hit the flush. For a strong player, there are lots of possibilities. If I call, I have only $130 left in a $340 pot. I can't really fold on the river unless it shows a fourth diamond, and I don't have a diamond. Jamming seems to be a reasonable play here, or folding if I think the villain would never bet this way or rarely bet this way without a flush. That might be true for most 1-3 players, but perhaps not true for this guy. Or I could just flat. So then I could get away on a bad river card, or perhaps the river will pair the board, giving me the near nuts. Calling or jamming are both reasonable, but I'm not folding here to this particular villain. So I called, and the river is a blank, 7 of hearts. I check, and the villain jams. Should we call? We have to call $130 into a $460 pot, so we have about 3.5 to 1 pot odds. With such a small bet, it seems like the villain is fine with a call. If he has a medium hand like an ace or a king or pocket jacks, he would probably have check behind. But he might bet the river with 2 pair or a set of nines. Strong players usually don't worry much about the flush in a heads-up battle, especially when I haven't shown any obvious aggression since the flush card hit. So my hand is not exactly a bluff catcher, since the villain could probably bet some non-flush hands here. But against a standard 1-3 player, I might fold, since they don't bluff that much. But against this guy, I think I have to call. So I did call, and the villain shows ace-10 of diamonds for the nut flush. The villain wins a 200 big blind pot, and I call the chip runner. There are a few lessons from today's hand. First, when we face a straddler with 100 big blind effective stacks or large effective stacks, we should play our hand just like we usually do, except that we now redefine our big blind as the amount of the straddle, which is $6 in this particular hand. Second, the near nuts on the flop can be 10th nuts on the turn, but we shouldn't automatically assume the worst. A monster under the bed paranoia usually just reduces our profit. And last, our decisions in tough situations must reflect the players we are facing. In this case, I believe that this villain was capable of bluffing, or at least thin value betting. I might make a different conclusion against the average 1-3 player. That's all for today. Bye-bye.